They were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who is this, whom even wind and sea obey?" There is no question of greater importance, no question of greater implication. This is the heart of all religion, the heart of all Christianity. This question, who is this man? On one hand, hearing this gospel, we could look at and focus on the terror and the overwhelming fear, the anxiousness experienced by the disciples. And indeed, they were experiencing that, being terrified for their lives by the storm. And we all experience that in life, different circumstances that rouse anxiousness and fear. But that's not what I would see as the main focus and point of this gospel scene. What is this gospel all about? Is it all about the disciples? Or more so, is it about this man whom even wind and sea obey? There are voices, and many voices, who would have us believe this man, Jesus, who was he? Well, maybe he was among the greatest of teachers. And these voices wouldn't deny his fame. Virtually all would agree Jesus is the most influential figure in all of history. There's not really an argument against that. And even further, no historian of any kind of credibility would ever even think of denying that this man named Jesus actually walked this earth. It's a historical fact. But the real question, the most important question, that Jesus, by what he does, not only by what he says, but by what he does, the question he requires us to answer is this: is he the one true God? This is what religion, Christianity, is all about, facing that question. Is this man Jesus God from God, light from light, true God from true God? Some try to say, well, Jesus, he never really actually claimed to be God. Yes, he was a holy teacher. Yes, he was a holy man, close to God. But the problem is, what Jesus actually did are things only the one true God can do. Who is this whom even wind and sea obey? And so this is the question when we encounter Jesus in the fullness of the gospel, that we are all pressed to ask. Is this man from 2,000 years ago who walked this earth, is he God among us? And if he is, what does that mean for me? This gospel, I'd say, more than about like the fear of the storm and the waves, is about the great awe the great awe that the wind and sea obey this man's command. Jesus, in fact, by what he does, is communicating to us, making the claim, proving to us that he is God. In the Bible, only the one true God has mastery and power over the wind and sea. All the Israelites knew this. These disciples knew this. They were familiar with the scriptures, the prophets, with Job, with the book of Psalms. And so in their mind, they know it's God and God alone who has mastery over creation. And we look at that first reading from Job. It's God himself who controls creation, the wind and the sea. The Lord speaking to Job, he says, "Here shall your proud waves be stilled. It's I who still the waves." And then this psalm, Psalm 107. So from the Old Testament, long before our Lord walked this earth, we hear they sailed the sea, cried to the Lord in their distress, and he rescued them. He hushed the storm to a breeze, and the waves were stilled. The disciples, knowing this, who has the power to rebuke the wind and the sea? God and God alone. So who is this Jesus? On one hand, he is fully man. It's man who walked the earth, human like you and like me. We see, he does human things. He falls asleep in the boat, worn out, from the long day. But on the other hand, what we cannot ignore, unlike you, unlike me, unlike any human who's ever walked this earth, he shows his power over even creation. This power that is reserved only to God. And the question is, when we encounter Jesus in the gospel, when we encounter him in our lives, are we filled with awe? Are we astonished? Do we wonder and ask with this true amazement, who is this one? Who is this one whom even sea and wind obey? When we encounter Jesus, the real Jesus, this is the question that we are all pressed to ask.